So thank you for joining all of us here today to talk about the 10 ways to run your business virtually. I like to start with something fun, which is, of course, these are sort of unprecedented times, and this is a great photo that appeared in my social media feed. No surprise. But the reason I bring it up is because it's kind of this idea of opening our minds up and saying, we have to laugh and we have to smile about the things that are going on in our world. And so it's sort of me trying to say, let's be positive. And at that, I want to remind everyone that really we do need to acknowledge that things are changing. And as you heard from my background, I'm sort of a bit of a technology geek and comfort level with this. So I know that this isn't going to always be easy for everyone, but how we do business is going to be changing too. And a lot of the things we're going to talk about today are some things that you may already be comfortable with and some things that are going to be new for you. But I want to put out a word of encouragement to tell everybody, just take it one day at a time. We often even say this with our clients here. We have to remember we have to crawl, then we walk, and then we run. And it's something that as a woman, sometimes I always want to be there already. But I wanted to bring it up because as we go through our tips for everybody at different stages of either if you're starting your business, you're sole business owner, you have a team, we're going to be looking at all different kinds of tips to make your day and business growth better. So being the meticulous person that I am when it comes to presentations, when someone says I have to do 10 tips, well, that's it. So we're going to see them broken down. So tip 1 is customer experience, support, and relationship is a constant. Please keep communicating. I can't begin to tell you about a week after, everything started to happen. Literally everybody said, stop advertising, stop doing everything. And it's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. And it's kind of an ongoing joke. The first thing that's ever cut is marketing. And I actually intentionally didn't put the word marketing here, guys, because I really wanted to make sure I was using an important word here, which is relationships and communication. So one of the things that I saw that I really loved, there was a great article in Entrepreneur about good communications can save your brand. And it is extremely true. One of the things that I coach people to talk about, so whether you're just getting started and you're starting to have conversations with people, or you're already in business, think about the fact that you do need to keep going with your communication. And what you need to be focusing on are the positives of what you provide, your expertise. These things haven't really changed. We're just sort of shifting how we're doing them. And I know there are some of you out there who go, well, you know what? I am a yoga teacher. Well, I totally get that. And, you used to having people come to a class, but now we're going to look at other ways that you can be doing that. So what I want to empower all of you to think of is focus on the positives. And I grabbed an example of an email that we sent out for a client of ours who is a jewelry store down in Louisiana. And, right when they were closing, we had to send a message out. And so one of the message things that we really focused on was, what does a jewelry store do for someone? So what do you do for someone? And so what is the role in the life of your customer, client, patient, whatever that, fill in that blank for yourself? That is really important because that's how you message. You don't have to stand 6 feet apart. That is not your goal. Your goal is to show how positive you bring their life to be. So for example, we focused on the fact that jewelry is a keepsake. And this year, we need something to hold on to. And actually, I know you guys can't see me, but I'm holding on to my necklace right now. It's kind of funny. I just did it naturally. And that was what we really focused on. And then their whole messaging started around love is not quarantine. But I wanted to mention focusing on the positives, because when you think about your message of communication, it is extremely important that you stay focused on relationship building and the positive side of what you do for your individual customer or client. So, tip 2, this is a fun one. We've been doing this here for a really long time, and I call it digital listening. And I don't know if anyone has actually ever thought about this, but this has a lot of opportunity for you. So what this is really starting to look at social media in a much more strategic way. So what I recommend, and I use the screen grab for LinkedIn here, but look at what your clients are sharing right now. If you're starting a business, look at what potential clients or organizations that are similar to yours. Look at the messaging that is going on there. Learn their lingo. I always have to remind myself when I'm on a call with a new client that I know lingo so well for what I do. I have to say, okay, did I say something that is not the correct language for you? So what I love about this concept of digital listening, and by the way, I have a dedicated staff person in my company that's job is to do this every week. They go pull out snippets of how people say things when they're frustrated. So I love this because it's sort of a way to use the world of digital to really learn the language of your clients, your potential customers, and it really will help you start to help with the first tip, which is building relationships and staying connected. One thing I want to point out, which I think is really important, is when we start talking about this and this area, you may want to adjust your security settings because most people don't realize that, but between LinkedIn and Facebook, as you start to do things, there are ways you can share with certain groups in certain ways. Needless to say, we won't go over the step-by-step of this right now, but I do like to bring it up because I think a lot of people forget to think about their security settings when they're starting to blend these two worlds together. I also encourage you to see this as opportunity for market research. I kind of use the Facebook groups because for those of you who might be starting a consumer-based business, why not join a group on Facebook? They're extremely active, and it can be a really great way to hear the concerns or problems. So as someone who started a business, one of the things that we did right now, we had to shift our business. And part of what I was hearing from people is, well, we need to do this ourselves. Okay, so I was listening. So use the marketplace, the digital landscape, to listen to people. And here's a couple of great ways you can do that. So the two groups are, fairly common for business to business. LinkedIn is great for Facebook, for business to consumer. The other thing, of course, is I recommend even thinking about looking at industry leaders on Twitter and even YouTube, and read the comments, the stream of what people will say. Boy, do you get a lot of language and wording to help you connect with people and better understand what their true issues or concerns are. Okay, so tip 3 is to set goals. And you have some amazing organizations here who are sponsoring this, and they're, I think, great opportunities you heard to work with to help you set goals. But I also want to remind everybody that we need to set not only professional goals, but personal goals. So this is my question to you, and this is actually up on my own whiteboard here in my office, and it says, how do I define success? And then I want you to answer this question. Today, how do I define success? This week? So BB increments, remember, crawl, walk, and then this month. Now, I know in business planning, we often like to look farther out. But because of everything that's going on right now, when you're starting out or you're already in business or you're even just thinking about starting out, this can be a great way to set some goals. So I want to introduce you to a tool, technology that I would recommend that you think about looking at. So this is called Trello, and we use it here. I'm quite familiar with it, but a lot of people will use this. It is basically, it's sort of hard for me to do this because it's a screen grab, but it allows you to create a board. And on the board, you can put the things that you want to focus on. So the goal. And what's neat about it is you can drag them up and down. You can move them over. We use them as a way of managing projects, but people also use them to manage their personal time. So this one is a board that I grabbed as a template, actually. Really loved it because Trello also provides sample boards so you can get ideas. And you can see this one was like annual life goals and planning, but it was just sort of to get you inspired. They do have a free version, so you can play with this. And I will tell you, it is extremely mobile friendly. So it's fun because you can literally with your finger drag and drop things up and down on the cards. So it is great for both business and personal, and that's one of the reasons why I used it here. So tip 4 is that metrics do matter. This was a lesson that I really had to learn when I was starting out. And that's why, like, we set goals, but with those goals, we have to set, iterations and metrics along the way. And so a little like background on me. When I was in my 30s, I gained a little weight. And so I decided after a little health scare that I wanted to get healthy. And so I started doing that. I'd say, okay, I'm going to cut my sugar by half in something. So I set like little incremental goals, and then I would measure it by results on a weekly basis. So now I do that with my iWatch. So I have an Apple Watch, and I love it because in my 30s I didn't have this tech, though I will tell you I was one of the first people to have a Fitbit. But I did want to bring it up because, it's something as so silly as this, but one of the things you hear so much now with people working from home is they're forgetting to take care of themselves. And this is important for you. Now, I went old school on this one because this is actually called a habits journal. And I read the book Atomic Habits the beginning of this year before the world changed. And I was so grateful that I did because of this, because it really made my mind up that I had to also make some other changes personally. So I wanted to show both a technical, but then a good old fashioned, paper, because you can do both of these, both digitally or old school. But from my perspective, I think it's really important that you set both business and personal goals and get into habits every day. So the silly little one of the digital listening, that can be a habit that every day during lunch, you maybe read a news feed or go into a group. So I wanted to tie the things that we're learning together. So tip number 5 is to review, rethink, and reinvent. And this is something some of you who are already in business really already need to be doing. So how can you look at your existing services? But those of you thinking about starting your business who are going, oh my God, I was going to start X business, but now I'm not. Well, how can you see this as an opportunity because you haven't invested so much? So you actually are probably in a better space than those of us who already have businesses, because you can now rethink about how to approach this, because what we're all hearing about this world that's going on right now is even though they're opening up the country, we know that there's going to be in the future other comments about future quarantines. So it's important that we think about how can we reinvent our services. How can you adjust your products? I gave some examples on a webinar that I did with SCORE that Mary actually sat in on and invited me to do this one. And like one of the things that I had mentioned is, there was a woman on the call that did facials for a living. And I was like, she's like, how do I do that? I said, well, I would actually, right now, I want to be pampered more than anything else. But if you want me to stay connected to you and you're local, could you pack up facials in a box and can I come get them curbside? And her comment back was, well, then they won't want to come to me. Oh no, we do. We want the experience of being pampered, but why not encourage us to also keep taking care of ourselves? So that's something that I wanted to mention. I kind of nudged my hairstylist to do that for me, like to put my formula, because I can't buy the products that she buys. So I could dye my hair and not use the over-the-counter stuff. What problems do your customers have in this moment, in the moment right now? If you already are in business, this is an opportunity. And for those of you who are starting, if you've been looking at this is sort of that same way, like something new has come up because of what's going on. What's the barrier to using your services? This is a really important one to talk about and brainstorm, because you need to know the hurdles people have to jump over to work with you. And then last but not least, what tools do you have currently that you're comfortable with? So I'm going to show you some more tools besides just the Trello, but I don't want people to just jump in and spend 3 days trying to learn a tool. Is there something that you're comfortable with already from a technology perspective that will at least keep you motivated and going? One of the tools that I wanted to share that I like, we use here and I've been a fan of for a really long time, is Slack. But the other reason I wanted to bring it up, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Slack. It is an application for sharing messages across teams. But what's cool about Slack is, for those of you who may not know, that actually Slack launched during the last depression or, recession, sorry. But I thought that was amazing because I had looked back and, on social media, of course, everybody's sharing like the companies that have come out of recessions, and that was one of them. And what I also wanted to bring up that a lot of people don't know is that organizations now are using Slack themselves. So actually, I could even nudge like New York Women in Business to create a Slack channel. And then instead of it being, it's like sort of the new modern day discussion board where people can have conversations. And I'm on a Slack channel through a group of technology people for a certain bit of information so I can stay up to date. So this is actually a great tool. And of course, I brought it up because it's free. The nice thing is it's a great tool for you to start to learn from. You probably hear it mentioned all the time. OneNote, though it is free, it only saves your messages for 30 days on the free version. But they have been running really, really great offers. A couple of other little tools I thought would be really helpful is, because we're talking about this side of planning and goal setting and measuring and metrics and rethinking your business. I actually switched to using Microsoft OneNote recently because I can jump and set it up across 1, 2, 3 platforms. So I have an iPad with a tablet and the pencil, and I like my phone, but I love my Mac. So I can jump from one to the other. So I've been really, really happy with Microsoft OneNote. I've also used Evernote in the past, even though it's not on my slides. And then this one I had found because I thought it was pretty interesting as well. And it's to-do list, right? As you can see, they dropped the L. Each one of the tools works for both business and personal, but I did want to bring them up because there's a couple of other things out there. There's so many of these tools that exist right now. My recommendation is to do some research on the ones that exist and then try it yourself, because even the Trello could be used in the same way. But the reason I'm bringing it up is what works for you may not work for somebody else. So though Microsoft OneNote is sort of working for me, it may not be the ideal fit for somebody. And the most important thing with technology is you're not going to adopt it if you're not comfortable with it. Tip number 6 is right now, more than anything else, to be authentic. Be who you are. Own that. And so one of the things I wanted to show is we have a client who just launched her online store. She's a designer, and I've seen nothing wrong with using this as an opportunity to help support a local charity. There's so many great stories out there about how businesses have been switching, providing new services, and in also making sure they're giving back. But it has to be who you are. And one of the reasons I bring this up is because this particular designer donates to this cause every year throughout the year. So for her, this is an ongoing organization she's always supporting. Another thing I wanted to mention is, and I think this is one of the things that people are afraid of, and when I kind of brought up some of the other tips earlier about, getting involved and doing more on social media, I'm showing my friend Elle, but she's also a colleague. I love the fact that she does these videos walking around her backyard, giving advice to people, and it's so authentic and real, and they're not overproduced. And I wanted to bring that up because I find so many people who are starting businesses or who already have a business are so afraid of doing a video of themselves in a natural light. Go for it. She's got the selfie stick and she puts it out there, and really people appreciate someone who's being real. And I wanted to kind of show that as an example because I think it can be extremely helpful. With that, I also want to remind you guys that when you're using social media tools for scheduling your work, so I wanted to share a tool, of course. So like one of the tools that we have clients who will use is Later. And Later is a tool that allows you to post to Instagram. I wanted to bring this up during this sense of authenticity, because what happens is people will publish to social media and then they don't go interact with it. So if you are starting a business or you're already in business, if you're just going to push stuff up to social media and not engage with it, then you're going to miss that opportunity for authenticity. And I sort of felt like here's a great tool that helps you schedule and plan, but also want to remind you that, again, make it a habit to go in and check it on a daily basis. So you're responding to people as they comment on your posts. So tip number 7 is learn something new for your business. And I have a little bit of a shameless plug here. I have to be honest. We are doing training ourselves, but I'm going to start with something like Coursera. I've personally taken classes on Coursera. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it. Why I like Coursera so very much is their courses are coming from universities. They're really well done. I couldn't believe the value. I actually took an analytics class from the University of Pennsylvania, and I thought this is fabulous. So I wanted to bring that up because it is something that I try to do. I think when you're in business for yourself, but starting a business, you're always in learning mode. But those of you who already have a business, we sort of forget that we still have to keep learning. Even if we're not going to do everything ourselves, it helps us to understand what's happening. And so there's my shameless plug. we are doing step-by-step trainings because one of the things that I find is really hard to find out there, and that's why we started doing them, is walking someone through setting up Instagram or walking someone through setting up Google Ads. Yes, there's tons of these things, guys, on YouTube. I specifically didn't put this YouTube up because be careful when you go through trainings on YouTube. Make sure you've vetted the background of the people who are giving them, because I know there's open trainings there and some of them may be absolutely fabulous, but just make sure you do your due diligence on the people that are doing them. Obviously, I can say we do good training. All right, so the next thing is, of course, be human. And I bring this up because we're using so much technology. I've actually been finding we're becoming more human. And so I kind of joke, talk more, email less, sort of. One thing that I've found in the last few years is so many people don't want to pick up the phone. And I like to talk to people. I think there's that connection in the human side, and this whole upside down world we kind of all got thrown into. I think the best thing about it has actually been the growth in things like this. This is Zoom, and I know you guys can't see me, and I'm more than happy to put myself on camera, but we do it because of streaming. But now I was listening before we got on, and one of the sponsors here, they were talking about they had their Cinco de Mayo party yesterday, and I love that. That was so exciting for me to hear. We're hearing about virtual networking and meetups this way, and so in some ways, I'm finding that the technology for things like Zoom, GoToMeeting, WebEx are really helping businesses. And as you probably have noticed, a lot of them have cut their pricing down on certain areas as well. But I also wanted to remind people, don't forget, picking up the phone and calling people is never a bad thing. Scheduling phone calls is still a great way to stay with people. And of course, backing it up with a little email reminder is never a bad idea. Tip 9 is buddy up. One of the things that I find, and those of you who are starting your businesses, please find a buddy. It gets really lonely and isolating. You hear this a lot from entrepreneurs. So I totally think you should find people. This organization is a great way to do that, but don't go it alone. But obviously, don't just get on and chat. Make a weekly meeting, send an agenda. These are people that can be great sounding boards. WhatsApp is fabulous for something like this. I love to use WhatsApp because one, it's secure messaging, which is really important to understand. And you can also still do group chats on there or one-on-one. The other thing I wanted to kind of mention that I'm not sure if everybody saw is Facebook actually launched something called Group Messenger with video. So now if you would like, you can actually run Facebook Messenger groups. So this is kind of a fun way for you to buddy up. And I think it really depends on what everyone's comfortable with from a technology perspective. But I did want to mention this because I'm not sure if everybody knows that this is available. By the way, yes, it is also on Instagram. Tip 10, and I think I sort of did this intentionally in this order, build your network. Not only is it helpful for you to find one or two people that you are going to be held accountable to. I have one I meet every Monday. That's Elle that you saw the photo of. We meet every Monday, 7:30 a.m. She's in London. I'm here. And without fail, we go over stuff every Monday. So I bring up the Build Your Network because this is going to be a great way for you to grow your business or start your business, reaching out to people. One of my most important things is this kind of joke. This is a meme that we created. Do not do this. You don't want to use, obviously, everything. It's going to be too much. One of my favorites, of course, is going to be LinkedIn. I have it at the end. I encourage people to connect with me. But I also encourage all of you to use this tool as a way to reach out. And what you really want to do, please, 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 is put a custom message in when you connect with someone. And when you follow up next time, have it be more authentic than, I get this a lot, someone wants to connect with me, I say okay, and then the next message to me is, we do websites, would you like to know our rates, and here's 20, I literally wanted to unfriend them in that moment or unconnect with them. But I've been reading a book on predictive behavior, and I want to learn more on how to build algorithms on that. And so I reached out to the authors of the book and connected with them. And they all accepted that. And then, I reached out again and had some questions, and people are happy to answer them provided you don't pester. And it's really a wonderful way to not only grow, but also for you to make meetings and appointments, opportunities. So use the last section. Maybe you can build a group of people who help each other. So we're always trying to put different people together who could do just this, run a webinar and hit the same clients. And then, of course, obviously, keep track of who you're talking to. Why did you connect with them? What has come out of that connection? All right, so I have a couple bonus tips. One of the things that I would like you all to be thinking about, but again, we've had 10, so this might get a little much, is to look for places where you can identify redundancy and automate those tasks. So one little thing, MailChimp, if you're doing email marketing, welcome emails can be a great way for when somebody fills out an online form, they get a nice reply back with a little bit more information than just thanks, we've received your message. Also, you could do a drip campaign where someone has filled out a form and then a day later they get some other message from you. So these are some of those fun things that we do as businesses. But wanted to bring it up because a lot of startups don't do these, and they can be really time saving, especially when you're one person. And then for those of us who've been in business longer, we sort of didn't do them, and then we're now going, oh my God, we're less staff or we have to do more. So for anyone that sells online, I wanted to remind you that you often your shopping systems come with abandoned carts. You might want to think about updating your abandoned cart emails or your page visited. So meaning you can actually trigger an email when someone goes to certain pages on your website. Very cool stuff. And by the way, that is not just for shopping sites. Another thing that you could look at is this idea that you can connect systems together. So, this one is called Zapier, and it's just to show you that when something happens, so like when someone signs up on your website or fills out a form on your website, maybe it goes right into a Google Sheet for you, and your virtual assistant is the person that's making the phone call. If you're a virtual assistant and starting that kind of business, maybe you help people set these up. But there's a lot of these little they're called, if this, then that is another company that does the same thing, is where you can put two tasks together that sort of always go together, and why should you keep doing them manually? Another bonus tip, which I love, is if you're working from home, which most of people are, I love this little tip just to remind yourselves to make sure that your cell phone or your iPads are all, obviously iPads usually use the Wi-Fi, but make sure your cellular data has been shifted over to using your InHome network. It's a silly little tip, but at the beginning we heard, call in. A lot of times streaming can be such an issue, and if you're in a low bandwidth place for your cell phone, this can be a great way to get calls. And then last of my bonus tips is to play some games. I know this seems silly, but you know what? Gameplay is not just for kids. We use it all the time in helping us stay connected to clients. But I bring it up because, again, at the very beginning, we talked about things doing business and personal. So if I jog an extra 3 minutes, I will reward myself with, if anyone has ever done that, that is a game. We play that game with ourselves. I, reward myself with a smoothie or one of my Jellos, or okay, I might cheat and have chocolate pudding instead. But at least it's a silly game and it keeps you motivated. This is one we actually made for a client, but I wanted to give you guys some inspiration because right now, if you're trying to stay connected or grow your business, sometimes quizzes and games can be a great way for people to engage with you, and you're not selling, you're, connecting, you're learning about them. And so think a little bit about how gameplay might help you grow your business. So last but not least, and we're about to open it up for questions. So I wanted to kind of mention that the data in this webinar is not shared with me. I do not get the attendee list, full disclosure, so I am bribing you. If you would like to enter to win one of our giveaways, if you email, you don't even have to go to our website, just email talk@technologytherapy.com. You will receive an entrance into our giveaway for either 3 web classes, which is a $105 value, or 1 private session with me. You get to choose. So that is my way of hopefully being able to stay connected to some of you after today's session. So I'm going to hand it back over so that Florencia, you're going to ask me some questions, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. I'm learning so much in the past 40 minutes that I'm really impressed. The first question that we have is very timely. So it has to do with the tone of communications during a time of crisis. How do you determine the correct tone? How much concern can you show before the message sounds insincere? And should, for example, sales pitches be non-existent during these communications?
So everybody, great question. And I encourage you to think through this because, this question is asked in a bit of a vacuum, and because I don't know everybody's business. But it's not business as usual. We know that. But as far as, find the things, again, I'm going to jump back. I like to use my slides. I'm not afraid to use tech, as you guys probably know this about me already. But I want to jump back over to that slide that I showed a little earlier, where, I want to mention when you're thinking about the communication, focus on that role that you provide in that person's life. So when you're asking, well, I don't know that if you're a jewelry store or you're a consultant or a nutritionist, I don't think you necessarily need to tell me to stay 6 feet apart. That's not the kind of stuff that you really need to be focusing on. I really want you to think hard about, how you're helping them grow and thrive in their individual lives. And I latch on to specific examples because it's always really helpful for me. But I really want you guys to think a little bit about how you will do that. It is okay to sell during this time. I thought that was an interesting comment that, Florencia, you mentioned, because I actually think it is okay because it's people want to buy from you. I just think how we're framing layers of support. Positive language is always another thing to be putting out there. And it's always great to say, how are you doing today? I hope this is finding you well. I have noticed this a lot in everything, which is that everyone ends a lot of the correspondence, business and personal, is, I want you, I'm hoping you stay safe and healthy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that's, from my perspective, why I put authenticity. Your language has to be really centered to who you are. So when you're messaging, I really want to mention that it needs to feel exactly like, you as a person and you as an organization. And I'm hoping that helped answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. Another concern that I've been seeing from a lot of the people who have questions is how to find potential clients. So they want to see if you can tell them what the best way to get clients, for example, when your business is service-based.
So that's a tough one to answer because it's broad. So when we talk about service-based, do you want to give me some examples, or yeah, that'd be great.
So, one person says that they have a business operations consulting service company. Mm-hmm. You, for example, really think that there exist Facebook groups that are for them.
Oh, so business consulting services is broad. So a Facebook group may not be for them, but a LinkedIn group would be for them. It depends on what I think type of business consulting you're doing. So I like if you're a business coach, or you're a financial support advisor or accountant, and obviously there are different kinds of accountants. I want you to think about, this goes back to just, let's get out of the COVID mindset for a second, and let's just talk about the fact that who is your customer and what need do you fill? We can't get away from good old-fashioned how you build a business. You have to go back to the basics of understanding those questions, and then I can tell you where to find them. There's plenty of places to have that conversation and plenty of groups to join, and plenty of opportunities, but you need to remember you still need to start with the good basics. And this is where I want you guys to look down at the bottom in our wonderful banner and reach out to some of these organizations, because that's a big part of why I wanted to be a part of this, because they really help you do this. I had to go through it myself, and I'm very clear about who is our customer and what is their need. So I want to encourage you that you still have to keep with who is my customer. Give me a business persona profile on that customer, and I can tell you where to find them digitally.
Thank you. Another kind of theme that I'm seeing is a lot of people want to know more about the games and quizzes. Is there a tool that you're creating this so that they are formatted nicely, like the example that you showed?
Mm-hmm. So there's actually a ton of tools online that do that. And if you guys connect with me, absolutely, I can send you some of them. I apologize. My head right now, Florencia, is at that end of the day. I'm like looking in my brain for the words, and I can't think of them. And as soon as I hang up, I know I'll remember like 4 of them. But there are, a silly little thing I'm going to tell everybody is, believe it or not, even your Facebook has them. Your Facebook business page actually runs polls, and you can play around with that. Oh, and then another thing we did with games and quizzes, we mentioned this, Instagram has a great theme. So if you guys go to Canva, canva.com, there's some really great little templates for playing like Instagram bingo and other online, it's like Wish something, and I cannot think of the name of it right off the top of my head. But as soon as I stop talking, I bet you it'll come to me.
Yeah, the same thing happens to me, so it's totally understandable. Another question that we have is one person is a herbalist with an online shop and a brick and mortar store that is now closed. They've been sending emails about how to stay healthy. Is there a formula for adding links to the website so that if they put it either at the top or at the bottom of the newsletter, do you have any key points that you could share with them on how to kind of communicate with clients by email?
So I'm going to ask you to back up for just a second for me, because I want to make sure that I heard did you say what they did? Like, they're sending messages via email, but they had a store, a physical location?
Yeah, basically it's more the question, I think, and it's something that I think everyone struggles with, is how do you have any like a secret recipe on creating emails so that people will actually engage and click on them?
Okay, that's a little different. I think let's go to that question, because that is more of, I think, where you're going with wanting to know what's sort of going on out there. So first off, subject line is extremely important to get people to open your email. The other thing that everybody forgets, and by the way, some systems don't make it easy to see, I will definitely tell you that, is the pre-text that people see on their phone. If you guys ever look at your email on your phone, there's like a little sentence underneath, and if you don't fill it in, sometimes it just grabs the first line of your email, and you don't want that. You want to control the message that someone sees. So you should try and think about making more engaging subject lines and the pre-header text. Those are really two very important things to getting people to open your email. The next thing I also say is, once they open your email, make sure that you have some nice imagery so that you are getting them to click to go where you expect them to go, where you're sort of driving them. So those are some like little tips. And that's actually going back to Canva again. That's another one that would be great for you to look at, because they have some really great sample templates. Then they also are a great place if you're not technical or a fabulous graphics designer. There's some fabulous tools in there to just help you communicate something a little better.
Thank you. Yes, we try to experiment whenever we send out emails to see what works, what doesn't work, but we still haven't found like the secret recipe for it. But that's a great advice. Another question has to do with your network, and especially during this time. Do you know what the best practice is for reaching out to members in your network that you haven't reached out to in a while?
I'm so glad you asked that, because actually I cleaned out my email literally today. I cleaned our email list of people that we had on it. And so I get this, by the way, all the time, guys. Please don't just mass upload your list to LinkedIn and then all of a sudden someone is supposed to connect with you. What I would recommend that you do is, I'm going to say, this is going to sound old-fashioned, but I would write an email that is a little personal, and then you could do a mail merge. So you could say, Jennifer, comma, it's been a while since we've spoken. I'm, reconnecting with people. Would love to know if we can reconnect. Be specific, why do you want to connect with them? One of the things that I think is hard is, and this is why, by the way, these things are time consuming. I will never say they're not. But if they're not genuine, then the person isn't going to take the next step. So you should tell me why you want to reconnect. I happen to actually have had a few people who wanted to do this, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being honest. We've lost some business. I'm looking for new synergistic partners. I am, would love to understand more about what you're doing and how I can help you. That one's always my favorite. That's a great way for you to start reconnecting with someone. And Florencia, by the way, I told you I would remember them as soon as I stopped. The one I was thinking about, and I'll be honest, I cheated. I looked up on the web browser, but was Wishpond. Wishpond was the one that I liked, that we have used a lot with small businesses, nice and user-friendly. And then the other one I wanted to mention was Woo, WOO, box, BOX. So Wishpond, W, and Woo box for the games.
Great, thank you. Another question that we have is a lot of businesses now are kind of reinventing themselves and finding new target markets and new target groups. How is it possible to appeal to those targets without losing the old ones?
That's a great question.
That's a hard one.
It isn't it. So actually, case in point, right here, we started doing. I went back to my self promotion slide, but I think your existing clients. I think it's important that you always remember. One, in outreach to them is extremely important. Don't neglect them. It costs you more money to get a new client than to keep your existing. So as long as you're taking care of your existing clients and you're not neglecting them, I do not think you will lose them. That being said, what I would avoid is making an offer and not extending it to. So what I mean by that is because of everything that's going on right now, we're doing classes where, we kind of dropped our rates a little to help people. But I extended that to my existing clients because I don't want them going on my website and saying, hey, how come you're charging me more? So I think that it was a really good question, Florencia, because I think that that's one thing that drives me absolutely crazy with the cell phone companies. It's like they give you the greatest offer and then they never give it to the loyal customers because they're like, haha, we gotcha. So I think if you're going to do something to attract new people, then why not create an offer to keep existing? Maybe get them to lock into a different contract and lower the rate because you're looking for something. And that's exactly what we've been doing here.
Goodbye.